Okay, so I'm on live on that one. Oh, no, it's not doing it. Invites, no. Okay, so this one. Mail. Mitmit, you can't be crying right now. No, you can't be crying right now, baby girl. Mitmit, pussycat, this isn't the time. Mitmit. Oh, there's people. Okay. So it's this one. If you can hear me, bear with me. Invite again. I hate computers. I hate computers. I hate computers. So hate computers. Okay. Okay, so haha. Yes, no. Hey. Oh. Are you on mute? There you go.
Hang on, what's up, friend?
What's up? I'm no good with computers. I'm talking to this thing, telling it to behave, and so I'm thinking we are live because I can see some comments. So can people let me know if you can hear all right when I plug these things in? Yeah, because everything, it just wouldn't let me do it through. I set up a schedule, all professional like, and it wouldn't let me go through that through Zoom. So it's probably my fault. But
well, as bad as you say you admit to being with computers, I'm infinitely worse. So thank you for hosting this. Thank you for setting this up, and thank you to everybody that's joining us. So.
Yeah, I might edit the start while I'm stressing about the computers, but we'll have a good time. So I'm going to introduce you. This is Adam. Can everyone hear okay? I think they can. So this is Adam, and I saw Adam on an interview on Gen Z, and I just really loved the guy's energy. I really loved the aura that he has, and the journey that he's been through, recognizing he's been to hell and back multiple times just by looking, but in the appreciation of that, also seeing that he has made it back, and each time making it back, taking more steps forward infinitely than he ever has fallen backwards into. So his energy and aura just really spoke to me. He's a brother in arms for all of the things that he's done, putting his life on the line in multiple ways for people who he doesn't know, just for the love of people. And so you're ex-military, aren't you, Adam?
I was, yes, ex-army.
And also a first responder. So in multiple ways, that lion heart speaking through his aura that you see now. And what I see now is a spiritual warrior on many ways and in many forms. And I just see growth and expansion there of other people being able to hear his words, hear his story, and also hear the truths, a lot of the truths that I speak out about regarding the oppression and the control that we see and manipulated through lies and propaganda. And so I realized this is a bit of a few moment of coming in as an introduction like this. I had it all squared off in my head perfectly, but this is how I do. So we the people who I have who are family to me in the chat here won't need to hear this, but anybody hearing this, I really ask of you to open your eyes, open your ears, and open in a balanced way your mind to the possibilities of things that you maybe haven't contemplated before. There's been a lot of things, flagged events that are manipulated and controlled that nobody questions if they really do hurt real, genuine and beautiful people. Nobody's questioning that, but I won't tolerate any kind of slander, any kind of disrespect to the guest. This is our home. Everybody in the chat is family here, and this is our home, and everybody is treated with the ultimate love and respect and honor while in my home. So open hearts, open minds, open ears, and just listen to what he's got to say. And so I hope that's an okay introduction. I had it all written down, but that goes out the window. So
you did a great job. Thank you so much. I appreciate those kind words.
It's really good to see you, Adam, face to face. And I really appreciate you coming on here. And we're going to collaborate further, people. I know that. So you just take it away. You just go with what you want to go with first, and I'll jump in and ask questions as and when. But this is your floor. This is your room and your audience.
Well, again, I appreciate everybody being here. I always start these conversations with the facts. This brings me no joy. I kind of came to the realization a long time ago that there's no win here. If I'm right, then I've uncovered something terrible. If I'm wrong, which I'm willing to bet pretty much everything that I'm not, and as you guys are going to see pretty soon in the not too distant future, I'm going to start making some even bigger and bolder claims on some pretty high up platforms. But I just want to get that out of the way. You know, I'm not doing this for fame. I'm not doing this for fortune. I'm doing this because I was third generation of now a fourth generation military family. That's my dad's side alone. My mom's side, we had 8 people serve, and 1 person was killed at Pearl Harbor in World War II. So it's very personal for me, and ultimately, I couldn't look myself in the mirror after all these years and continuing to see the way the world is going. And I know that we have to be kind of careful about how we talk about the current affairs right now. And the fact that we have to be careful about these discussions should tell you enough. But really, the things that I'm going to say on this live, I've been saying for quite some time, and people will attest to that. I can show anybody, and I've got to prepare my information correctly. And the people that I've talked to before have seen the documents, that I'm going to show the world. But I've had several collaborations, and you mentioned Dave with Gen Z. He was the very first person that gave me a shot, and that dude's a great guy. He's solid gold. I love that man. We had a great talk. I have no problem in saying that we went for about an hour and 45 minutes, and that was my first talk. I was a little nervous, but he's great. He's wonderful.
You did awesome. You did awesome on that. It really did. I'll put a link in the description when this is all said and done to that also, because he is a great guy, and I don't know him personally, but I love his energy, and you did awesome.
Yeah. I appreciate that. He just told me, be yourself. We're just going to go off the cuff. And so I messed up a few things. I didn't get a couple of names right, but it was because I was so nervous. So you learn, every time you do these, you live and you learn a little bit. So, but I have to say thanks to him. But, jumping right in, before we even really talk about this, a lot of people say, well, you're making a big claim. I don't know how you can make that claim, and people have seen all their lives, variety of ages. It's like, that's bold. Well, for anybody out there that doesn't think that the United States government has the just the capacity to do this, before we even talk about 9/11, I want you to research a document. It's called Operation Northwoods. This was a military document that went all the way up through the military channels. It made its way up and past the Joint Chiefs of Staff. This is the person that's in charge of kind of the collective military for the United States. Their seal of approval got all the way up to John F. Kennedy, and he denied it. So if you look in that document, you're going to see that the United States government has before green-lighted on its own citizens and on the world stage terrorism in order to justify warfare. And so I always lean on that first. That's an unclassified document, because the one thing that I learned when I was playing poker for a living is it doesn't really matter. You could have all the money in the world, you could be a great player, but you could be in the wrong game. And in order to get into a game and kind of determine if you're in a good one or not, you have to pay attention to the people that you're playing against. And ultimately, you're very quickly trying to ascertain what their range is, what they're capable of doing. And so for you guys out there that think the United States government is not capable of doing this, there's your proof. And then the second thing I always say is, outside of 9/11, 9 days after September 11th, General Wesley Clark was at the Pentagon, and there's several testimonies to this. You can look at my link tree. It's on my Instagram, Awakenedadam, which, by the way, that link tree is about to be drastically changing in a positive way. I have to really comb through all the information before I upload it and make sure that it lines up. Lots of testimonies, lots of pictures pretty soon. But on there's multiple testimonies of General Wesley Clark saying on September 20th that the United States military had a series of campaigns lined up. And we're talking about Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Iran. And his words, not mine, his words, is that the Bush administration basically conducted what he called a policy coup. And there's a lot of media that will corroborate this. After September 11th, the media was basically hushed. They were very controlled. There's so many media anomalies around that day alone that don't add up. But 9/11 was a major psyop, and I just try to show people before we even get into the details. The government, the United States government, had that gear. They had that capacity. They could do that. They were ready to conduct terrorism on American citizens, and in order to justify war. But also this other very high-ranking, very esteemed, general has come out and said, "Hey, look, they lined up all these campaigns." And so, we have the advantage right now of time. 20 some odd years has gone by since all this, almost 20 years. And so with the right set of eyes and the right set of ears, you can almost look back on all these years and find a number of things that don't add up. And so that's kind of where I stood. I witnessed what I did. Military documents will show that I spent from September 11th to September 30th on site. I was there 12 hours a day, 7 days a week with my company. That was Alpha Company, 3rd U.S. Infantry. And originally we started out as kind of a do whatever you need to do operation, kind of contingency, go where you need to, where you're ordered to go, lift stuff. We at first were looking for people. It was basically determined that no survivors there were no survivors, nobody had made it through. And then it became a body recovery / sensitive item recovery mission. And so that's the way it went on for that time. And a picture, if you go to my Instagram or on my link tree, you're going to see pictures. You'll see a picture of me retiring the flag that was hanging off the side of the Pentagon that day. But ultimately, and we can get into the weeds, of course, momentarily, but when your eyes witness something that alters history, and the last 20 years has seen a lot of different things change in the United States government and military landscape. We had a George Bush, who was a very right-wing, very military-driven, conservative Republican, got us into that war. Well, then the script flipped. We've got Barack Obama, polar opposite. The wars kept going on, and people don't realize this. Look up how many people Obama drone struck. So that man was a killer. And so, the debt didn't change. The wars continued on. The wars were going on in several different places. I've got a friend who was in Afghanistan after he was with me, and he went on and do bigger and better things. He's going to go on record pretty soon, knock on wood, hopefully, talking about how, as a platoon sergeant, he was ordered to secure an opium field in Afghanistan. So that kind of tells you a little bit about what we were doing over there. Jesse Ventura talks about the vein of lithium. And this guy, if you guys don't know who Jesse Ventura was, look him up, but he talks about the vein of lithium that was in Afghanistan, and then Iraq. So many people have talked about why we're over there. None of it ever made sense. Meanwhile, the debt keeps going through the roof. Anytime you're in a military campaign, that's when the goalpost gets moved, and ultimately the globalist elite push their agendas. And so it goes back to invisible enemies. Back then it was terrorism. Now it's something else. So we can't talk about that though, because that's when people get censored. But yeah, I hope that gives you guys kind of a brief introduction. But I do have an additional feather in my cap outside of spending so much time on site. And this, of course, all my claims get backed by military documentation, but I also worked in corporate America for a company called Pratt & Whitney. Pratt & Whitney is one of two companies that manufactures, they piece together parts, but they build for both commercial and military capacities jet engines. Well, they're one of two companies that built the Boeing 757-200 jet engine, the other one being Rolls-Royce. Well, I'm very intimately aware of jet engine parts. When I worked at Pratt & Whitney, I was a supervisor in their second shift operation that in some positions was accountable for the whole entire operation some days. And that was a shift of over 100 people, $2.3 billion, 750,000 square foot facility. I was basically my boss's backup. And so I had to become very intimately aware of parts inspection, of supervising people that are going through parts inspection, who are inspecting parts, but the whole operation, I had to kind of become holistically kind of sound there. And so I could also inspect cargo. That was an FAA certification that came through Lufthansa Airlines. So I'm digging all these documents up. I've got to go back. I left UPS, and so I never obviously thought that I was going to go and pursue this fight as hardcore as I am now. But that's where I am. So I'm still compiling stuff. I'm still getting some things together. But of all the first responders that were there and can prove they were there, I don't think anybody has that feather in their cap but me. And so a lot of these people, and I'm putting together a list now. There's kind of a series of people that I'm going to be engaging. These are Oxford and Harvard educated authors. I'm even going to be going after the guy that was in charge of the cleanup that day, because I think he's a mainstream pusher, and I think I've got him too. But ultimately, my life is kind of getting put on hold now that I have an audience, and now that it started with Dave on Gen Z, but now that I've got several kind of podcasts and speaking engagements under my belt, I'm seeing that people are receptive. The message is finally being heard, and people can now look around and say, yes. The governments around the world, they like to put their hands in the cookie jars, and they get caught a lot of times and nothing ever happens to them. Well, I'm basically now showing the world and with great clarity and with with accuracy, and that comes through books with, notes, resources, citations, proof, evidence, pictures. I'm just showing the world with great clarity that, you need to be very mindful of who's making decisions that affect you, especially when certain things are happening that penetrate your body and take away your bodily autonomy. So I have the eyes and ears. Now I just have to get out there and do it. So I'm rambling, my friend. So I hope that's enough.
You're not rambling at all. I was just fixing it so that more people could find the stream with a start in a second stream. So while you were talking, so I wasn't being ignorant there, I was taking it all in. And you're not rambling at all in that the way that you speak about and the way you deliver it is really refreshing in that this is, you can forget that when you haven't had first-hand experience. You can forget when you have had first-hand experience that those who haven't will find it shocking. There are still a huge amount of people that will find it hugely shocking and upsetting that those that they trust so much, those that they put so much of their elements into, their love, adoration, respect, and most of all trust, could do something like that, that their own home turf could hurt. And it's hard for people, but I do feel it's the time is now that people realize that the world over, there are sections of the government, if not most, but sections of the government in each country, apart from maybe a very few, that are part of a certain clique, a certain family that have no borders, that have no honor or respect for the land that they walk upon. They feel like they are part of something that just owns the world. And they will use things to play good people off against good people. They will send people like you, like my granddad, into wars that do not make sense, but make sense for them. And so the way that you deliver it is not going on at all. I think it's a really nice, not softly approach, but opening approach for people to start just letting that sink in. And so because we do need to realize this, the plans and the agendas going forward, as far as I can see, are even worse than we've been dealing with thus far. And so the progression of this, it is important that we do deliver as much truth as we can from whatever walks of life we've come from, in order to open, because it is a numbers game, because they have numbers, because they have built up systems that hold a lot of numbers of people, numbers of police, numbers of military, numbers of social services, numbers of all of these people that, for the most part, are there for a good heart, for a good reason, to keep children safe or to fight for their loved ones and others at home. They're indoctrinated into this, and they use the empathy and compassion of, for the most part, good people to militarize and mobilize agendas that actually are just using people as cannon fodder, as ways and means to an end. And the end is always for their gain. So no, you're not going on at all. I appreciate everything that you've just said there and the way that you've said it. Sometimes I can go in a bit hard. So, carry on.
Yeah, well, and I also tell people as well, the information that I bring, it's really going to shine once I have to compile it. I have to organize it. And I hate to say it, as much as I love to read these, we live in a generation and in a time where the majority of people don't like to read, and they want information served up to them, which I'm happy to do, but it just takes a little bit of time. And so really it goes back to Sun Tzu, and I consider myself to be a student of Sun Tzu. I love Sun Tzu as a former infantryman, but all warfare is based basically in deception, everything. And those are his words, not mine. So I'm employing Sun Tzu right now. What I'm doing is I basically identified a piece of the battlefield that is not being targeted. And so I'm going there, and that's what I'm doing now. 9/11, I'm running over there. I'm fortifying my position, and I do that. I'm kind of in the process of doing that right now. And one, while I have everybody's attention, kind of, let me just pull this up really quick. You know, everybody says that books are a thing of the past. Well, that right there, notes and bibliography, look how extensive that is. And so, you know, this is information that's been put together by teams of people that can all be researched. So I have to go through this, I have to comb through it, and that's a big time job. And so it's going to take a little bit, but I'm getting there, and I'm getting there quickly. And it's amazing what's happening in the process. People like yourself that want to talk about it, people that have been researching it on their own are popping up and throwing stuff at me. And I'm just, you know, I used to be able to kind of get into the weeds. Well, now I can kind of really get into the fine details. And even then, I have to take notes. I have to do all these things because there's just a litany of things. And yeah, I mean, you nailed it. You know, there's a world.
You're walking in divine timing. You're walking in divine timing right now, and that's because you're aligned with self right now. And so I can see that, I can feel that from you, and so it's an interesting path forward for you for sure, with peaks and troughs, and it does take a heck of a lot of work. It does take a heck of a lot of bravery, a different kind of bravery to what you've been even used to, I feel, you know, where you're working in army, you know, scenarios, and where you're working in first responder type scenarios. That takes a level of bravery in of itself. But this kind of bravery, sometimes it stirs, it's a little bit harder to grasp and hold and use. And so you're doing it beautifully. And so you're attracting in people with that energy. So it's all you, my friend, and it's because you're doing what you're meant to do. So it's you're doing real well, and I support you all the way. So going into, you've laid out a really good blueprint of for people to be able to have those open ears and open eyes and hearts, for you to listen further. In that, you did say one key thing, in that, yes, there's the army, you know, practices that you know of. And so you are very well versed in that, physically and mentally and emotionally in the field. So you can really take on the Sun Tzu, which is coming forward real strong right now on the collective stage. So that's one thing you've laid out that is real cool for people to know as a foundation for you to be able to springboard your words from. The other thing you've laid out for me is the work that you did regarding aeroplanes in themselves, seeing the parts, looking at the parts, knowing the size of parts, knowing the type of materials that are used and how those materials look, whether they're dismantled or put together as a plane. And that's another thing that I would think people can really key into as you go further with your description of however you want to go forward. But for you to springboard off, to have that, for people to know that you've got that foundation, and just for me to outline that, because as they listen to you further, I think it's important that there is ping to those two things, that you know the art of war because you have physically, emotionally, mentally lived it. You actually know the physicalities of planes because you have physically worked with it, seen it, touched it. You know, you know the parts, you know the screws, you know the metal, the materials. So just as you go forward, I'd like people to really take that on board as something that gives you a great amount of authority to speak on what you're going to speak on as we go into 9/11. So
yeah. I appreciate that. And another thing that I also tell people, just to really drive home the accurate nature of what's kind of going on up here and right here, especially, you know, my 39 years of living have really been a case study in PTSD. Unfortunately, my father and I don't talk anymore, and I still love the man, but you have to put up some barriers sometimes from people. And I hope that's not always the case, but I had to do that. And so, you know, on top of that, my military record will also show that one of the other things I did while I was in the military, I was stationed at Alpha Company, 3rd U.S. Infantry. It was the oldest active infantry company in the Army. It was actually the escort to the president. In order to be in that unit, you had to have certain criteria that were equal to an infantry officer. So I was very proud of that unit. I loved being there. We we did burial detail in Arlington. So, you know, after cleaning up the Pentagon for 4 years, I had to clean up George Bush's mess. And so my military records are going to show that I buried over 1,000 people in Arlington, and that's not fun. You know, it wasn't always soldiers that passed in Iraq or Afghanistan. We did do some next of kin, some spouses, but, you know, carrying caskets and then having to look somebody in the eye with a flag and say, you know, this flag is presented on behalf of a grateful nation as an expression of appreciation for the honorable and faithful service rendered by your loved one. Having to do that over and over and over. And then, you know, we also had the duty of, we were another, you know, one of a couple companies that did this, but when fresh bodies had basically been expired in Iraq or Afghanistan, they went to Ramstein Air Force Base where they were processed. Then they were flown to Dover Air Force Base. Well, those bodies had to be received by people. And so there was quite a stir in the United States. The media wanted to take pictures of that. Guys like myself and I, my platoon, we would do that. But just having to go through that experience was terrible. Those bodies were kept on ice. A lot of time that ice would melt and it would break through those caskets, and we would just get bloody water on our gloves. Every time we went up there, the general that flew with us up to do it, there was always a new general. Well, they wanted to tour that base, that in-processing center. So we always had to walk through there. So there's a lot of other stuff that went on that over 4 years just did not sit right. And every single time, every single day was a good gut punch. And I always knew that something didn't feel right, but I really didn't start studying it until I got out and just watched how militarily things weren't changing and the landscape wasn't changing. The debt was getting worse. Things were getting worse. So those are those things, but there's a lot out there that's just doesn't add up. And really now it's just about telling that story and just getting people to understand that I'm not motivated by fame. I'm not motivated by money. I literally have less than $400 in my checking account right now. All my money goes into my businesses and into my endeavors, you know, and that's just the way it is. And so, you know, I don't want to go in front of the internet and be that guy that gets famous for this. That's just not it. It's just, I look at the next generation. I have 3 great nieces that I love wholeheartedly. And I refuse to hand this world off to a generation of people that literally have no chance. I feel like our generation, this is it. It doesn't go any
this is the line. We're on the line right now, and we either hold the line or it's lost. Yeah, this is absolutely the line. I've got children, and I speak out about it. Everybody here knows that I speak out about it all of the time, that the time is now. There is no more time. You know, and talking about it a couple of years ago, feeling and seeing in visions what was coming down the lines, trying to shout it out to say, look, you know, we hold the line now, or, you know, we're not going to want to hand off this world to the next generation. And a tree is judged by the fruits that it leaves, you know, and what it leaves behind, the nourishment that it leaves behind on the ground. And those fruits are the children. And what is being fed into that tree for the children right now is completely unacceptable, completely unavoidable if people don't take a stand and stand in their divinity and sovereignty and get ready to hold the line, very much so, and not allow this to go any further. So it is time, TikTok, you know.
Yeah, it really is. And I tell people, I was born in 81. I turned 40 in less than 2 months. And I'm actually excited to admit that I'm looking forward to my 40s. I don't know why everybody's all down in their 40s, but I could look back at a time in my childhood and in my teenage years that felt different. Freedom was different. And sure, these forces that we're up against existed back then. They were just doing things a little lower. And the technology that has in the last, 15, 20 years has just gone through the roof. But I can remember a different day and age when freedom was real, and it just didn't feel like this right now. There wasn't algorithms censoring us. It's if people don't see how quickly the goalpost is moving right now, then I don't get in on people, because that's one of the spiritual lessons that I learned, that not everybody sees what you see, even if they see it too, and it's right in front of you, and it has to do with their conditioning and their experiences and the life that they've led behind there. But yeah, a lot of times, things like 9/11, the pictures that I'm going to show, that's kind of obvious. But other things, it's much tougher in the moment. But yeah, we got a lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do. We've got to get moving. And you're right. I remember childhood being much different. My daughter's 21, and she's my eldest.
Can I cut you off for a second? You have a 21-year-old daughter. I don't believe that for a second.
I do. Yeah, I can prove it. I housed her. And so, yeah, I was young, but she's 21. And so she was born in the 2000. And so she, even from her lifetime, technology-wise, she has seen actually and it's been interesting from her timeline, from her lifetime, but thank you for saying that though, how much technology has jumped. I was using dial-up internet when she was running around my feet, as a toddler. And so in that short amount of time, 21 years, which is a flash, it's jumped to the point where we literally have AI beings around, watching every step, and that invites spiritual connotations too. And it does create, people get poorly, they get ill when they have stalkers. They really suffer, mentally, emotionally. They don't sleep, so then it's physically. We are living in a day and age now where we are being stalked. A lot of people don't know it, but subconsciously their spirit does, their aura does. That is heavy stuff for a lot of people to be carrying. So when we're seeing triggered people, one, they're being triggered, by triggers, but two, it's that subconscious wearing down, that insidious nature of being stalked. We literally, every move, there are more cameras in the UK than you can shake a stick at. There are more cameras. Phones now are taking pictures without even having permission to do so. So we have that energy around us all of the time, and so that shows how fast this is moving. Time is speeding up, and it really is, not just in the physical measurement of it, of whatever is time, but also just in the capacity of the powers that be and how they can move and shake now. It's not that they were any less horrible in the 80s, but it is the fact that they have the technological capabilities to be more instant with it now. They have the drones to be more instant with it now. So they're off playing COD, from the government buildings and dictating instantly what happens, and can switch the collective on a dime just through certain propagandas. And so, things are speeding up for sure, and the capabilities of them doing so are speeding up for sure. So you carry on with.
Oh no, I was just going to say, speaking of technology, I have to say this, just to kind of hammer on what you just said, and not to get away from 9/11, but you go to my Instagram at Awakenedadam, just Awakenedadam, just one big word. I dial in quite a bit on the capabilities of technology, because ultimately I think that right now, not that, like I said, get away from 9/11, but technology is being used to manipulate us just extensively. And so the one video that I lean on heavily, I've got a video. This was back in 2018. It was 3 technocrats. They were given a talk at Millikan University. And if you go to my page, all my videos, the ones where I really try to drive home just a point that I'm trying to make about technology or about what's happening, I titled the videos, "We Talked About This." And so really looked into those videos that just say we talked about this, but there's one specifically where at Millikan University, I've got 3 technocrats saying these things. It said, in the next few years, and he actually gave the words 3 to 5 years. Well, that was 3 years ago. He said, human beings are not going to be able to mentally, wrap your head around technology. And this is where it really scared me. He said, and governments are not going to be able to control it. And so, let's get then to Elon Musk. We all know Elon, smoking weed with Joe Rogan, Elon Musk from Tesla. Well, he said 2 things recently. He said, when it comes to mRNA, these are his words, so the algorithms can't censor us. This is Elon talking. mRNA has the capacity to change human beings into a butterfly. Now that gets into energy beings, that gets into all sorts of stuff, simulation theory, all these topics. But he did also say as well that he is on the forefront of technology and AI, and he's terrified at what he sees.
Yeah,
So,
he said we're sure as hell we don't know which way it's going to go. Could be the best thing in the world, or it could be the worst thing in the world. But one thing we are sure of, we can't control it. They've
no, and
created, in my opinion, and this is me speaking, so don't shoot Adam, you all know me, but in my opinion, they've created a vessel, a conduit, which is what our biological bodies are for our spirit and soul, for even more nerve-wracking beings to be that use technology the way that we've never seen before, to be invited into this realm, to be invited into this dimension. And people do not know what they're dealing with. So when their phone does predict just through the thought alone, this is the advert I'm going to send you, when you haven't even spoken it out, you've just thought about it, and you all know it's happened to you. If it hasn't, watch that, think of something, you'll see the advert. That is the type of AI that he's talking about, and that is what I feel Elon was alluding to. Now, the butterfly thing made my ears prick up real big, because I thought, time, butterfly, there's always that butterfly effect, isn't there? It's time jumping. I've seen time jumpers in my psychic visions. I know that they use precise, and this is me talking again, precise algorithms throughout dimensions in order to jump into specific times. I feel that that's how we're hearing to people talking about walk-ins a lot, knowing that they've had some kind of walk-in spirit. Spirituality and technology in certain layers of dimensions, I feel, are like that. And I think the ancients knew that. And I think that was part of the downfall of the ancients. So yeah, we've let these goons be in charge for too long. And because we see now, I noticed this, I watched something in the US, and it was, sorry, my cat's messing up my paperwork.
I have to lock my cats out because they'll start attacking you while I'm doing
in. Yeah, she sneaked in, and I was like, damn it. So she's making a noise now in protest. So So I'm watching this this thing, and it was just one of the things that pop up on YouTube, and it was a military, not military, like tribunal of some sort in the US. And I looked at them, and they were all old men. They were all old men, a couple of older women. I looked at the parliament in the UK, and I looked at them, and I thought, you're all old men or old women. So yeah, you've got a lot of power. Yeah, you know a lot of stuff. But you've literally had corporations like Gates, like Soros, and introducing these beings that I think they're practically related to, you know, into connecting it with the government, you know, corporations and technology, making them so interlinked and so reliant upon them. These old people in government didn't have a clue what they were inviting in. They didn't know. They don't know, and that's not to say that they're forgiven for everything. No, they know a lot, and they do a lot, and they use that technology. But they are being dictated to by corporations, and have been for a very long time, who know that they're speaking to older people who, when we've just described before Abigail's lifetime of 21 years, the jump there. No wonder they've been tricked. No wonder they've been able to be enticed into having more power, not quite knowing what that means algorithm-wise and control-wise. And seeing the transition now, we're seeing the transition, I feel, from corporations openly coming out and saying, yeah, we're the government. We're the leaders.
Yeah, and you know, here's the really challenging aspect. And this is where in kind of my talks before here, and I've been very fortunate. I've had talks with like Jason Shurka. He's kind of on the tip of the spear when it comes to the truth community. You know, we have to not only talk about what we can say and what we can't say as far as algorithms and censorship, but then just the collective mindset. You know, you and I could probably start talking about some stuff. I'll be like, listen, if you want to know what's going on right now, listen to channelings, like especially Cryon. I don't know if you're familiar with Cryon, or if you ever listened to anybody.
I know. I actually, he's one of the ones that I do resonate with. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's funny, you know, you start talking about these things, and it's like channelers are more accurate than the world's governments that are making decisions for everybody. But so we're at a point right now where I think timelines are emerging. And I could say so much. And I talked a little bit about some things on Dave's podcast. And one of my favorite words is when, people from the UK, they say, "Oh, that guy's a nutter. He's nuts," and
He's
so
nuts.
he's a
You
nutter.
nutter.
So I'll tell you, I love the jargon that comes out of the UK. But yeah, so I could say a lot, not only about, like the spiritual awakening process, some of the things that I've seen, some of the esoteric stuff that I know I've seen. I could talk about channeling. I could talk about past lives, getting the Dolores Cannon, QHHT, all this stuff. But then it's kind of like I can't go that far because I don't want to lose people that essentially could benefit from the message. And so,
we'll go with your dealings and stuff that we were going to go with, if you like. Sure. But you're welcome to be as open about. That's what I do every day. People have been listening to me every day saying timelines are tearing apart, and there's get in your lane now. You'll choose. Everybody here will be laughing in the chat room because this is what I do every day, talking about hijackers, talking about different beings. And so this room, this space, this home that you're in and welcoming and a part of now, you're very welcome to anytime you want to go further into any of those, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
I appreciate that. I guess the only thing that I can say right now is that and if anybody's been through a spiritual awakening experience, and I think ultimately life is a spiritual awakening experience, the whole thing is, it just has new levels, and it's ultimately all of us are just walking each other and ourselves home, and I wholeheartedly believe that I'm here to help usher in unity consciousness. I'm here to experience the ascension from third dimensional consciousness to fifth / heart-centered consciousness. But in order for that to happen, first, a lot of these systems that have existed since the days of Sumeria, they go all the way back. They have to fall. And if I'm just going to be real, back when I was 19 years old, I'm 39 now, but I got this tattoo. It's an Eye of Horus, and so I didn't know why, but I now know why that resonates with me. And you want to talk about time just not being a linear thing. That's a whole other esoteric topic of discussion. But, and then a birthmark. I just have a huge birthmark right here, that has some kind of spiritual consequences. So, yeah, there's all sorts of things we could talk about. I could talk about, my draw to the Atlantean times, to Lemuria, to all these things. And like you said, people could be like, man, that guy might be nuts. But hey, I basically put myself into a situation where for 8 months, I was just up in the woods. I didn't do anything but meditate, read self-development books, intuitively connect with nature. And just when you do these things and you are receptive to it, the universe, God, source, fate, whatever you want to call it, whatever word makes you comfortable. It's all the same thing, in my opinion, but it will reveal itself to you. And it will start showing itself to you. And for me, that comes in a variety of ways. But ultimately, everything is unfolding exactly how it should. And ultimately, like I said, I kind of go back to, I can't not do what we're talking about right now. I can't. That's my fifth dimensional consciousness. That's me standing in my truth. And so if you're doing that, if you're really, loving yourself, you're being true to yourself. And if you're loving yourself, you're going to love the world around you. But yeah, your vibe dictates your tribe right now. And just, it's amazing to see all this just naturally unfold. So I don't doubt it for a second. And I'll be called nuts for it. I don't care. It is what it is. If people don't resonate with
you might be, but I had to come to a point too. I've always been able to see things and channel and view things from being a baby. It never stopped. Thankfully, I had a mum who could do the same, and so it wasn't. I did get mixed up in what I would call the Christian cult. It was the cultish movement. So I saw the inside of that too. I saw people slain in spirit and things feeding off them, not the things that they wanted. And so there's those experiences. So you're absolutely. come to a point, I feel, of releasing yourself from the labeling and conditioning, and not giving a flying, excuse my French, fuck what other people think about regarding it, because you know, it does make you smile sometimes at them. It's endearing sometimes to me now, and it never used to be. I used to worry a little bit about what people think, but it's endearing to me now sometimes when people say, you nuts, timelines. It's like, you've got no idea. So it's just, you know, you be comfortable. You can be comfortable here. I see a lot of collaborative shows where you go into all of those things that you described, because each and every one that I can see in the chat room here has had similar or same level experiences, and on that same plane, which I feel truly gifted to have, because like you say, just divinely people are finding each other. So I know for a fact you have found another tribe of people today who will stand in agreement for your abundance. You know, I'm working hard too. I lost a lot of money, and so I know the feeling, but you know, for you, yes, we put the message out, but not the lack mentality either. So I know all of these names that I'm looking at right now are going to stand in agreement with me right now for your abundance, and that you walk in your path of divinity without lack, that you don't even need to have that. So even from that point of view, you can be supported here to have that part of yourself. So while you're doing the truth about which opens up a lot of people's eyes on a certain level who haven't maybe connected a lot of dots yet, while you're doing a lot of the truth at work, you know, to put out the truths about what you saw firsthand, what you experienced firsthand, you've also got a space here that you can be open about the spiritual journey and the spiritual aspect of you that have led you to where you are now and continue to lead you, because each and every one here is here because we all talk about that stuff, you know, all of the time. So it's really beautiful that you can open up now and be brave enough. And that's the kind of bravery I was talking about before. It takes a different kind of bravery, doesn't it, to release yourself from those conditions and labels. Totally. And even to release yourself. You mentioned your father, and all love to him, but I understand that. I've got a family that is 100 strong, that I was close to. And because they met with my line, and that was it, no more, you know, because I had to do that. You know, it's no good me preaching, get in your lane, find your tribe, be with who resonates and lifts you up, if I'm not going to do that myself. So thankfully I'd done that a few years previous to what's going on right now, but I understand that too, and that takes a level of bravery to be able to see the bigger picture outside of even the labels of family and friends and how things should look and should be set up. So I take my hat off to you, absolutely. You know, I would take it off fully, but I don't know what my hair might look like underneath now. So I've been gardening all day. So carry on, David. David, Adam, I'm looking at David in the chat room. So you experienced 9/11 as far as from what perspective did you sort of enter into that world of horror, you know?
Sure. So, as I said, I was in Alpha Company. We were designed really as a contingency force to escort the president. We really did quite a lot of stuff in that company, but at that point in time, we were actually preparing for a thing that we did every year. It was a kind of a military public outreach army campaign where it was called Spirit of America, where we would basically team up with the drill team, the army band, the fife and drum corps, all different aspects, and we basically put on a huge show, and we would travel to a different city. We went to Columbus one year, we went to Pittsburgh one year, and we would fill up, you know, these arenas where these professional sports teams were doing their thing. So we were preparing. We'd gotten over to Fort Myer, Virginia. It was right over across from the Pentagon by Arlington Cemetery, and we were getting ready for our day. It was early. Well, all of a sudden, things started happening. Things were kicking off. Fire engines were on the backside of the base, just flying past. Same thing went with the police that day. Well, first sergeant basically got a phone call and said, you know, we're going back to the base. We didn't really know what was going on at that point in time. There was a lot of buzz, people were talking about potentially, you know, attacks in the DC region, having to go out on foot to secure things. And as an infantryman, you know, especially as a private at the time that only been in my unit for a couple of months, I was like jacked. I was like, yes, like let's do this. But on the way back to our base, reality started to set in when we were crossing one of the bridges to get into the district, and there was a box, and the first sergeant had to make a decision right there. You know, we were going to proceed, or what was that box? It was right out in the road, like it was kind of on the side of the road actually, but having to get to one side of the bus and kind of do one of those numbers as we drove past it, and then getting into DC was gridlocked, and so we had to get out of the buses and run back to our barracks. But ultimately, we got back to the base. We kind of were on standby status, and I have to say this too. There's a little tiny kind of side story that I have to share, because it starts to just point out some of the interesting things that were happening. And I'm going to talk about two things, and then we'll get back on track with the story. But I volunteered. They needed about 15 volunteers to go out and provide extra support around the walls and the entrances to our base. So naturally, I was like, yes, I'm in. I was trying to prove myself. I was a new private. Well, I went to the arms room to pick out my M16. I received it, and the arms room specialist gave me an empty magazine. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, you know, excuse me, specialist, there's no ammunition in this magazine. And his words exactly were, you have not been authorized. The base commander has not authorized the use of live ammunition. And I'm like, I can see smoke from the Pentagon right outside, you know, across the river.
Ammunition might be helpful.
Yeah. And so I told the MP, I got out to the MP, to the wall, to the front gate where the MP was. And there was this really nice woman. She was a military police officer. And I just asked her, how many rounds do you have? And she's like, I have a few rounds. And I said, well, if anything comes at that gate, I'm going that way. So that was one of the interesting things, that we never got authorized to use live ammunition. But another thing that happened, this was a couple months down the road after 9/11, my base, specifically my company, somebody tried to send anthrax in the mail to my company. And so why? You know, why that always struck me as weird, you know? And so for the longest time, our mail was going through this process where it was being kind of searched. And so there was this X-ray machine that would basically nuke the mail. And I don't even know why they sent us mail. It basically melted the mail. And so that was being done in our unit. But last but not least, I have to say this as well, kind of skipping several years ahead. But for the last 10 years, over 10 years, I've had a Veterans Administration claim that, knock on wood, is going to come to an end here in May 28th. But the military right now, the United States military's stance is that I was not active duty military. They can't prove that, even though I've spent all my GI Bill money. I've got honorary discharge paperwork. I've got a file. I've got everything, but they can't show copies of my medical records. And if I've made two in 2017 and in 2019, I made two requests, and I can show you these thick folders, and in my data drive, which is going to be public here pretty soon, I can show you the letters that were written back to me. But the only paperwork they can give me is just military documentation prior to me being in. So where the hell's my paperwork? And so those three things are, it's a litany of stuff. But yeah, I have to say those three things. So, you know, before we even get on site at the Pentagon, there's other weird things that are happening. Well, long story short, that day, eventually, you know, the afternoon turned into the early evening, and that's when we went by company over to the Pentagon. We didn't know what we were going to do there. We just knew that we were going to be on site and we were going to be used as a contingency force wherever needed. Well, nobody survived that day. It became obvious. And then we became kind of a body recovery, like I said earlier, sensitive documentation items, basically do what you're needed on a 12-hour day basis. And so it was really like FBI, different Homeland Security, whatever you want to call it, the Arlington, Virginia police and the fire people. Like, there was a whole bunch of different agencies that were there, and we basically assisted them. But my military document will show that I have extensive experience. Right, I literally walked inside of that hole that was there. I've been on both sides of the outer ring that was there. But from the very beginning, one of the first things that I noticed, and I can't put words in other people's mouths, but I wasn't the only person at my company was saying this. And there's a document that's going around. If this makes its way, you know, high wide eventually. There is a document. There was a person that was basically going around, a journalist that was interviewing people. Well, back when I first really started to think about, okay, do I really want to pursue this? Do I want to put some effort into it? What did other people in my unit say? Well, I happened to read through this document, and I did find out that a lot of other people were saying the same types of things as me. So yeah, since day one, I was in the part where the building was apparently hit. I was very knowledgeable about kind of that first ring. I did a lot of different work inside of there. So it cannot be contested. And in that time, and I kind of overlay this, what I'm about to say, to my experience working with planes, and pictures from that day, and pictures that I'll show while the event was happening and after the event happened, show that you're not going to see a fuselage. You're not going to see anything. And there are people out there that say, well, that's what happens when something hits, concrete. And it's like, no, there's no wingspan damage. And so, I always lead people. I say, stop when, and people have theories about the towers, plane did or didn't hit it. I'm not even going to go there. My expertise lies in the Pentagon, but I always stop the cameras right as those towers got hit, because you're going to see wingspan damage. You're going to see major differences compared to what I'm going to show people from the Pentagon. And these are high definition pictures that were taken by a guy named Jason Ingersoll, where the only thing you see is a little tiny hole. You don't see wingspan damage. And where I ultimately try to shine the most is saying, hey, I'm very familiar with jet engines. The very first day that I walked into that facility that I worked at up in Londonderry, New Hampshire for Pratt & Whitney through UPS, we had to walk in every day, and there was a huge jet engine inside the facility. And so it was almost like fate was like screaming at me. It's like, hello, hello, hello.
You need to say this.
Yeah. So if you look at those pictures, and again, I've got all the pictures, I'm going to be uploading them. And if you look at my Instagram, you can actually see I've put a lot of them down there. You're just going to have to dig for a little bit. But again, it goes back to organizing and presenting information. But absolutely no damage that's conducive of a Boeing 757-200. It's so much smaller. There's no wingspan damage. The windows, everything that's there. There's no physical damage that's there. No jet engine damage. The huge tail piece, no damage over that hole. There's windows that are intact right above the hole prior to the falling of that portion of the building. So stopping right there. I always say, this is Dr. Judy Wood speak. I don't know if you're very familiar with her, but I consider her to be one of the foremost experts. I don't know how she's matched in any way, shape, or form, but she really is extremely knowledgeable about pointing out all of the obvious evidence up at the World Trade Center. And she is, like I said, a doctor. She knows everything about engineering. She approaches it from heat sensory. She gets into seismic sensory. She touches on energy weapons. And this is where we start to cross into the oh my gosh, that's crazy. There's a video that she shows, and if you YouTube, again, Dr. Judy Wood, you can find this. And there's also an extremely good presentation that she did on Gaia, for those of you out there that have Gaia. But there's a piece of the Trade Center, and things kind of fall, and then as the things are falling in a free fall, which, by the way, never in the history of skyscrapers has a skyscraper fell from a localized fire. 2 of them fell that day. And then there was actually an additional building that fell up in New York that day that people don't talk about. But there's a video where this piece falls, and then there's this huge 700-foot piece that just evaporates into thin air. And so, yeah, that's what we're dealing with. And so going back to the Pentagon, there was no signs of ever plane parts, and furthermore, there's investigative teams that have concluded that the plane parts that were found in the Pentagon, they were never positively identified as being attached to that actual plane. The mainstream message is always the same. The parts that the mainstream media shows, of course, you can see the American Airlines logo, but as a parts specialist, I always point out in those mainstream pictures, there's no fire damage. There's none. It's just they're mangled. And so naturally, of course, everybody also says, well, the black box was found, even though that, what is it, 90 tons of plane, hit that little tiny area, no damage whatsoever. And there's so many lies out there that say that, and this is where I'm starting to really uncover some stuff. And these are authors, these are media. This is a number of things that talk about how 3 rings were penetrated at the Pentagon, and that's just not true. I can prove that with photographs. But then there's a really you can kind of tell just how shady it was. There's a hole you can find, and again, it's the perfectly symmetrical hole that was kind of like placed right into the side of the 3rd ring. So here's the 1st ring, 2nd ring, 3rd ring, and there's this hole up there, and they're saying that was the tip of the plane, and it's like there's completely intact rings in between there and there. So it's such bullshit. It's just it's out of control. But so I never saw any plane parts. I never found any bodies, and I found quite a bit. I was there. I was on site. We carried a lot of bodies out, and nothing that looked like it was ever on a plane. But then I get into kind of stepping away from the Pentagon. David Ray Griffin. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of David Ray Griffin. He's written over 10 books. He's edited, I think, 15 more. But these are 4 of David Ray Griffin's books. And you can just see, this is the kind of research that this man did. And then you get people like Joseph Stiglitz. This guy won a Nobel Peace Prize for, economics, talking about the true costs and the illegal ways that we went into war. But so, no planes, no nothing. You have to look at the evidence. And furthermore, then I kind of lean into that. That's where I shine. I was there. I can show you I was there. I also had that feather in my cap.
Paul from Newcastle is a brother in the chat, and he's saying something about and the passport that was found with no damage. Little things like that the media have pushed, and like you can say from a professional level, you're not going to find a passport with no damage that's been on a plane that's gone through a building and then been crushed down with everything else. You're not going to find that. So good call, Paul. Good call, Paul.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, carry on. Just what you're saying. The media is just, the ridiculousness of it is so crazy, but the quote that comes to mind as you're speaking, and I've forgotten who said it. I think it was Hitler. Tell a lie and make it big enough, and they'll believe it. You don't, and repeat it. That's the quote. Yeah, repeat, and make it big. And so, and they do that so much, like that, saying that, oh, we found a passport, here it is, perfectly intact, and it doesn't make any sense, and the response to it. And one thing I want to bring in, and I don't want to take any more time than you've got, so you just let me know when you're done. But the one thing that's been coming up for me in the tarot readings is the High Priestess card. I'll see if I can find it straight away as I'm talking. But the High Priestess card is a major arcana, and it's depicted with the 2 towers behind it, Boaz and Jashin. And it's the light and the dark, the black and the white, divine feminine, divine masculine. Now, the indoctrination and the teaching of that, from a free masonry level, from a Masonic level, and therefore a church level, is that, the divine feminine is evil, cold, it's the moon, it's the, and that's what they sort of built upon, regarding squashing down divine feminine. The masculine is the action, the sun, and so that's been coming up a lot, and it's not going to come up now, but typical. But so what came to mind, I saw your interview and that card flashed in my mind, and I thought, they do things ritualistically too, regarding the energies that they know, because they've kept our knowledge. So they know very well astronomically what is happening, astrologically what is happening, and what energies are primed to be uptaken at what point. And they know the energies of the collective, and so they do ritualistic things. here it is, that make sense to what they want to bring about. And 9/11 is a key point of ritual to the plan that we're seeing now. Way back when in Sumerian times and going forward, it was to start downtrodden the divine feminine, knocking everything out of balance, making it more patriarchal rather than balanced. And so they have it depicted here. So you see the feminine, the masculine, and the high priestess represents the hidden, the occult, the secrets, not necessarily bad, but our knowledge that is being held back from us. Those twin towers, or these towers, there's something about that ritual that happened that day where patriarchy, in a negative aspect, took a huge leap and jump into even more control and oppression, and not anything that made sense from a security level, but everything that made sense for them to be able to keep more tabs on people's movements, on people's freedoms. And so it was a ritual in my eyes. And where you're talking about that lady, Dr. Judy Wood, I've been writing down the name, sorry, Dr. Judy Wood, where you're talking about that and the energy weapons. I thought I was going crazy because for years now I've been having visions of a blue lightning, but coming up. And then I got told, that they have got weapons, which are now is the information coming out, these energy weapons, which literally, they use the ionize the particles, don't they? But there's a certain energy weapon and documents coming out now where they literally bring lightning up from the ground. So they literally can, and there's documentation out there now on that. And I thought I was going crazy. And so the capabilities that they've got, people maybe can't quite comprehend at first, but they very much are there, and they very much are being used. And from my point of view, not knowing the research of all these awesome people you've given me the names of tonight, from my point of view, it is not a big leap for me to say that was some kind of energy weapon stroke planted bombs prior to the day, or earlier in the day. For sure, it's never resonated with me that it was how the news was saying it was. It just hasn't. It just doesn't feel that way for me.
And I feel it was an energy weapon ultimately that was used, and so kind of going back to what I was saying, I start kind of where I do, but then I say, I have it. If you look at my link tree, you're going to see a video testimony. There's a woman. She was at the Pentagon in that portion of the building that was hit. She got to work that day. She turned on her computer. She had her son with her. And when she turned on her computer, that's where she said she thought she triggered some type of an explosion. So I believe it was an energy weapon that was used at the Pentagon. Well, interestingly enough, and she, of course, goes into detail. This testimony is fantastic. She talks about how she never smelled any gas, never saw anything that looked like a jet engine. She shows her ID. She was there. Walked straight out of the hole, never saw anything. So I do think it was an energy weapon. And of course, the guy who was in charge of the cleanup is a guy named Lee Wheelbarger. And he doesn't know it yet, but right now I literally get 3 hours of sleep a night. I'm listening to every single thing Lee Wheelbarger has said about this. And pretty soon he's going to know who I am. I've already invited him to speak. He's never answered me. And people also don't realize this. Over 100 days ago, I challenged Mitch McConnell to a public debate after he said that people that say that planes never flew into the Pentagon on 9/11, he was, of course, talking about Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, but he said that they're not living in reality. So I said, wonderful, Mitch, let's debate. And I offered him up to $2,000 cash. I was going to give it to him, $1,000 just for showing up. Here you go. You can donate it to a charity of your choice. If you beat me in the debate, I'll give you another $1,000 you can use to donate to a charity of your choice. So I don't know many politicians that turn down $2,000 opportunities just to speak for an hour, but I did tell him that I'm sure some of the people funding his campaigns could produce that kind of money. But this woman gave a testimony that was wonderful. And then kind of further going back, I have there's a website. These guys were basically involved in their own independent kind of Pentagon 9/11 truth movement. They were called the Citizens Investigation Team. I've kind of started to get into their stuff, and I'm going to be posting some of their videos as well. But they have so many just hours of testimony from people that were right outside the building, that were there, that were on the grounds across the street, all over the place, basically saying that, they did see a plane. It did look like a commercial plane. It came from a completely different approach. And these are multiple people that didn't even really know each other. Some of these people knew each other, but most of them didn't. They're all independently saying the same exact thing. Well, the Citizens Investigation Team, the reason that their work is so awesome is they have what's known as a North approach theory, which gets kind of backed by all these people's testimonies. And then the official narrative was called like the South approach theory. So what it basically stated was, this is of course the government's response. Well, the government was totally shady in the investigation process. Not many people know that either, just how the Bush administration was extremely shady. But the government's official stance was apparently driven off the black box that had the flight path, which right there, the Citizens Investigations Team, and all these videos, you can find them. I'm going to put them in a very organized manner on my page, but all the testimonies don't line up with the South approach. And then furthermore, there was a guy named Robert Balsamo, and he's ahead of the pilots for 9/11 Truth, the 9/11 Pilots for Truth. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but he produced and created a 15-page peer-reviewed document by two other people that totally, with mathematics, debunks the government's official South approach narrative. And he also states that basically the way that the plane came down, this guy is an experienced pilot, and he basically even says, I couldn't have made that maneuver at that speed. So the way that the plane came down through the approach, now mind you, this was after every single but every single plan in place to go after a runaway plane was missed. And of course, nobody talks about the battery of missiles that never took the plane down at the Pentagon. But basically, the approach was impossible. The physics of what was apparently damaged, these light posts, could not have been damaged that way. And there's a really interesting testimony that the Citizens Investigation Team brings out, where they get this taxi cab driver totally with his hand in the cookie jar, and they've got it all there. I'm going to put these videos up, but this guy, of course, was one of the witnesses who one of the light posts that clipped the jet, and the light post hit his cab. Of course, this guy, his wife is employed by the FBI, and of course, he said that somebody helped him remove this multiple 100-pound light post, and then they just drove off in a van. These guys have him just lock, stock, and two smoking barrels, lying his ass off. But I also have video testimony on my link tree that talks about Hani Hanjour, the pilot that was flying that day. I've got people up in a flight school in Maryland where this guy was showing up trying to learn how to fly on Cessnas. They're like, this guy had no intentions of learning how to fly. He didn't know shit. He had a terrible attitude. It was so bad that one of their instructors basically refused to go up with him anymore. So then it's just more things and more things and more things that don't add up. And the beautiful thing that we have now is time. And so now, like I said, my mission is just getting all the evidence, getting it all organized, and then just one by one offering to debate people that have made some big claims. And they're not going to debate me. I know they're not going to debate me. But just dismantling the lies, shedding light on the truth. And ultimately, I'm just going to say it. You're the first person I'm going to say this to. I've kind of kept it shut, but I'm about to put myself into a position where I'm going to be kind of financially set for a little bit. I'm probably going to, and I've got to talk to attorneys. I got to figure out how I can legally do this without, coming off as a threat or getting myself arrested. But I'm going to get as close to the Bush compound down in Texas as I can possibly get. And I'm going to try and basically commissioned George Bush to paint me some pictures. So there's this big PR effort right now with George Bush. You know, his dumb ass basically just disappeared, and now he's down on the ranch doing George Bush things. Well, he's apparently painting all these pictures, and you can look up this information and find a lot of YouTube videos. Well, I'm going to start asking him to paint me some pictures. I'm going to ask him to paint a picture of the two guys, two of my brothers that were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan that are buried in Arlington right now. I'm going to ask him to paint me a picture of the first flag I ever handed off, but I'm especially going to ask him to paint me some detailed pictures of the Pentagon that clearly show that a Boeing 757 could not have hit it, and that, you know, the average car weighs about 2,700 pounds, somewhere in that neighborhood. Well, these jet engines that propel these, the Pratt and Whitney jet engine, I believe, weighs over 7,000 pounds. They're extremely compact, and ultimately, assuming that this plane, which has been physically, and these pilots that do these mathematical equations that show all the bullshit, they're breaking out pilot physics and stuff that I don't understand, but it's all there. It's a PDF I can show anybody. But basically, it's just, if a jet engine was slung back like a slingshot, you know, and then flung forward, and it hit the Pentagon at the speed that it was going, over 500 miles per hour, it's going to leave something. It's going to leave something. But yeah, the only evidence they have is it's a video clip that's on a significant delay. And I always jokingly say this: it's like the Pentagon said back in the 90s, "Hey, I'm going to get American Online." That's like one of the original, like, AOL. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but one of the original internet providers. So back in the day, these guys had dial-up, and you know how dial-up was. You know, it's like making all these. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like, okay, the Pentagon is on dial-up, you know, modem, you know, so it's a bunch of crap. But they released this one video, and of course, it doesn't. If you know the Pentagon, you know kind of where everything lines up. It doesn't match the official narrative, and so they think we're stupid. Like, and I hate to say this, but they're kind of right.
For a long time, we've become complacent and apathetic, and it's lost lives, and it's the reckoning now of, you know, are there enough of us to say, sorry, we were asleep for the longest time, but today we're awake, you know. And I think we should get some things going. I'm going to push it like no tomorrow, some hashtags of debate Adam, you know. What did you say? Who did you say?
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell. Let's hashtag debate Adam. Mitch, how you doing today, Mitch? Let's debate, Mitch. You know, all of that. We could all be doing that. We could, if you don't want to get up and speak, you could be hashtagging and getting a vibe going of, you know, a hashtag, you know, if you can. And then if I'm pushing it and you get other people to push it, let's push that too, as well as the paintings, you know. And because we owe that to the blood that has been spilt through the complacency and apathy, and to the brothers and sisters that we've laid to rest far too prematurely, you know, because of these goons being allowed to get away with it for so long. So let's hashtag that, Adam. You know, let's come on, you know, ding dong, Mitch. You know, let's hashtag the balls out of you. You know, so are you? And even then, even if they don't, which they probably won't, it shows them up that they won't. It shows them up that they don't, and that tells people something. It's like, well, hold on a minute, you know. I want you to just speak to the man to shut him up, to shut up these hashtags. And that's the kind of things we need to get real active on. And, you know, we can speak about it, and then it does sort of hit you sometimes as you're speaking. You spoke about your brothers laid to rest, you know, well, the body's laid to rest. And it hits you, and you realize the real impact of these things, that it hurts real people, it spills real blood, and it is not acceptable that we continue to find it, you know, in our hearts not to do everything that we are led to do on our paths as individuals, and combining that together too, because it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense, and the stories are melting away, and that's the good thing about it. And there's people like yourself who are, I think, perfectly positioned when you talk about your life and your way there, you know, having that job. Did you say UPS? So having that job to be able to get used to being around and seeing the parts and whatnot. And I know what you're saying. I had an uncle who was in the RAF real high up, and I've sat in Harrier jump jets, you know, in the thing, in the hangar thing. And you know, so you get to know these things are big, you know, and that the Harrier isn't that big, but even that is big. I remember looking up to it as a little girl and thinking, you have to climb up there, you know, there was ladders to get up the thing. These things are big. They don't, and I think sometimes we become complacent over those little details because of movies and things like that. You know, a hippo never looks the size a real hippo is in real life. On TV, you become complacent of, I could face a hippo if I was walking in that, you know, Sahara, whatever it is, wherever it lives. And we see planes all of the time on the screen, and sometimes those little facts can slip away. So it's important. It might seem tedious to you, but it's important sometimes, I think, to highlight to people, these things are big. You know, when you get on a plane, and a lot of people haven't gone on holiday. A lot of people just take for granted that everyone's been on a plane, everybody goes on holiday. A lot of people have not. A lot of people have not even loaded up onto a plane to go on holiday to feel the size of what those things, those pieces of machinery feel like, look like, the size of them. They've just seen them on screens, which sort of minimalizes it. So it allows these stupid stories of the narrative of the propaganda to make a little bit more sense in their heads, because they haven't got the context. So the way that your life has just been divinely led, I know it might not have felt like it at sometimes, nobody's does, you know, for you to be able to lay that out in context, and never being a part of the even upper echelons of the army, being able to be in a very important position as a group and as an individual, but being able to speak from a level that is a part of the process, but as a citizen more so, you know, you've seen it through a citizen's eyes, not just an army rank eyes, and you've brought that back to the citizenry to give them context, and to be able to start those cogs turning, those wheels turning, of being able to open up to, this does not make sense. And it seems tedious to some people to go back to a time, but I feel that, you know, these times, these rituals, they keep them rolling. So what we've been through right now, this pandemic right now, is part of a ritual that has rolled on from 9/11. What we're going to see rolling into September time will be another impactful, unfortunately, I feel, ritual of some kind. So it really is important that we start to be able to see the pattern and decipher the patterns and decipher the codes, to be able to be acting in foresight and predictively acting, rather than always being put on what we would say over here on the back foot, you know, always, you know, reacting to what they've already done. And so for you to be speaking out on this, I think, is so timely. And again, just another weave in your tapestry of your roadmap that is your life, as to why you're being led to speak about this now, and getting the opportunity to do so.
Boy, you nailed it. I can tell you so many things throughout my life, and I have led a pretty interesting life, but I'm just a dude, you know. I just try to serve my country, but so many different interesting things. It's like a Plinko board where just these perfect little things happen, and just things fall so divinely into place. And I'll tell you, we talk about algorithms listening. Well, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, release the videos that you have. Make me out to be a liar. People don't realize there's tons of videos right across the street from the Citgo gas station, the Pentagon City. So many videos are on record from being taken and completely just kept by the FBI. So release them, you know. And I always said, you know, even if I took an L on the plane, which I know that I didn't, I'm not going to take an L on it. You know, I can then start to ask George Bush questions about the way that they went into war as a result of the illegal decisions, and, you know, the contracts that got put out there. And you know, Donald Rumsfeld, all the crap that man has said, Dick Cheney, all the things that they've said. There's so many things that you can identify, even if I'm wrong about the Pentagon, but I'm not wrong. I know I'm not wrong. But so yeah, it's just one of those things. Like I said, we have the position to say, okay, we've got 20 years where we can look back. Well, I don't know. I just, you know, and this might resonate with you. I don't want to scare people, but it's like, I don't think we're in the last days or weeks or months. I think, you know, we're in the last seconds potentially. That's why it's like, I'm so just damn trying to get out there to just to tell people, like, you know, don't inject that shit, because that's something that you guys don't understand. I mean, that's the next phase. And you talked about rituals and everything. That's where we're heading. So
and that goes, it all interlinks. You can see all of the chain links coming together now, for sure. That the whole transgender thing, you know, actually what they do for me is they infiltrate or create movements through victimhood. So even some of the people who've been genuinely transgender, and I've only known two, they don't want to be in the public eye. They don't want to be you know, victimized. They don't want to be that label. That it's a private thing. It's a process that they're going through, a very private thing. But yet they'll find people who want some drama, who like some drama, who want to be seen, who want to be influencers. And so they absolutely infiltrate what should be just a very simple thing of a very small group of people who genuinely are feeling that they can't live with the body that they're in. You know, they use them and utilize them, and actually, just like they do the army, you know, just ditch them when it's right. But now they've got this huge movement, and that's to cover up the true transhuman movement, which is at the DNA cellular level. And I've spoken out about that a lot. The things that I feel and the visions that I've been having, I'm having to switch off a lot. I've spoken to everybody here about it, that I'm feeling people being separated from their souls. And I said that a long time ago. I predicted that there would be at least 4 of these jabs coming out, and they would all be serving a different purpose. I told people that Boris Johnson was doing this whole plasma drive, you know, save everybody in this pandemic by donating your plasma. He sold, and I told everybody, don't do it. He's going to sell it to China. What did he do? He went and sold it all to China. Why? Because they needed DNA. They needed DNA to be able to structure who was who and what was what. And this is why we have this color-coded system of the bottles literally being color-coded. And so that it's the time it's happening now. And I feel that there's going to be, and I do feel that the lead up to the anniversary of 9/11, there's going to be a certain frequency switch that goes off that will dictate what these people who had a roll up a sleever will do and how they will act. I do think that will correlate with, you know, the $5,000 thing coming out and being switched on. In that's it's all about frequency. And so they know how to manipulate that. And if they've got certain receptors that have had time to, you know, repopulate in the body and whatnot, and that switch goes off, we're going to see some very interesting things for sure. So it is time for you. We can't not do what we need to do right now as individuals to play the part, to get that numbers game and start to spin it around a bit. But I do think it's inevitable that we're going to face some very weird times. We've come too far. We've been too complacent for too long. So we're going to have to dance a bit, you know. We're going to dance and shadow box a bit, you know, in whatever way that comes. So we do need to keep looking back to look forward, to see the patterns, to see the little tricks and traits. But we are in the, if my granddad was here, he would be saying, we're in the battlefield now. We're in the mud. We're heavy with the mud. You know, we're wet. We're dirty. We're heavy with the mud. The uniforms, you know, we're literally, you know, in the middle of it now. We're in the midst of it now. And so that's where we are. And that's where we're going to be.
Yeah, you nailed it. And I don't know if you got to watch that Sasha Stone interview. He was talking with, I think it was an energy healer, and this woman had performed. And I'll just be straight with you. I'm a big energy person. I got my HEKATE-A diamond. I've got my. This is my world. I believe in all this stuff. But he was given this interview.
Just for disclosure, that's what I do as well. I do energy work with people, so you can say whatever you need to say, and it resonates.
Perfect. Well, he was talking about this. I don't know what kind of work they were doing, but this woman had worked for a long time with this individual that had went through the jab, and she said that there was when she really kind of got over her heart chakra, that there was a disconnect there, and so just going into.
For me, that's the anchor to the soul, the heart space, the heart chakra. It's the anchor to the boat.
Absolutely. Well, what really woke me up in my own spiritual journey, I got to a place. One of the greatest questions you can ask yourself is very simple. It's just why. Put yourself literally this close to a mirror and just keep asking why. And you're going to go into a lot of details about a lot of things. Well, I remembered back, I was doing some guided meditation, but I also went to a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But I eventually started to get down into levels of consciousness that really, like, first moments of shame, 2 years old, 1.5, 3, you can go there. And I found that there was a lot of anger. And so I had to have some very uncomfortable discussions with my mom and my dad. And my parents divorced when I was 15. And, to their credit, they still haven't talked. They don't like each other still. But my mom said, he was an asshole, but he was a good dad. And my dad as well. I said, did mom ever do something? Do I need to know about it? She said, no, obviously I don't like your mother, but no, she protected you wholeheartedly. So then I had to think about, other family members. Was I molested? Was I something? But I was surrounded in a, for the most part, in early childhood, a pretty loving family. Well, I was like, where the hell did this anger and this experience I remember when as a little kid, like I had a lot of anger. And what I found to be interesting, I always was drawn to the Orion constellation, where you talk about, this is where you get into like masculine and feminine energy. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I was listening to a channeler one time, and she was talking about how basically in some of the more advanced civilizations up in Orion, how technological enslavement was starting to occur through chemistry. Well, I don't know if you know the spiritual significance of birthmarks. Dolores Cannon kind of gets into that a little bit. People talk about how that could be a sign of how you might have died in a former incarnation. But if you really get close, you can kind of see right here, there's a scar. I used to have a big birthmark right there. And so it's almost like...
I've got a line here that goes down this arm, actually, where this bit always stays whiter than this bit, and it's a birthmark that, and I've got another few on my tummy, and actually was born with things wrong with my tummy area, so. It's
crazy. And so that's the new level of where I'm at kind of spiritually. And it's so funny. I make no bones about it. I am learning to channel. I have completely changed my diet. I don't drink anything but spring water now. I meditate. I have to meditate. I incorporated the meditation. I'm basically doing everything just I can to raise my vibration. But I'm being led right now to channel. I know that I am. And if that interferes with my 9/11 journey, I don't think it will. But if people don't want to listen to me based on all the evidence I'm pointing and proving, just because of some other things that I might be doing over here, then to hell with it. It is what it is. But so many different channelers have come out and talked about the technological enslavement that went on in Orion. And we could get into so many different talks. Like that could just be like consciousness's way of building this beautiful scenario that we're currently in. I mean, who knows? It resonates with me. And a lot of spiritual teachers say if it resonates, then you already know it to be true. And
it's from your perspective, and it's your truth, but I can tell you that it's a truth that many people, I think all of the people in the chat room right now share, and others that will watch this later will share, that you're entering into a community of people that have either been there in the same way or been there in a different way, that people who know they've been abducted, people who know that they've, there's so much you know, consciousness is so expansive, and reality, what is reality, is so expansive and unfolding and ever cyclically changing, you know, and then there's the dimensions of that on top, and then there's the planetary elements down to the cellular level. It is deep, and so you can't allow yourself to be worrying. And I know you're not worrying, but this is where I'm a bit protective over you in saying that you for the right people to hear your words is that it will only bolster the argument and the teachings that you have to 9/11. They complement each other because they naturally do, and I know everybody here would agree that they do. And so anybody who disagrees with that, then they're just not ready. They're just not ready to resonate with that, and that's fine. Fair dues, you know, jog on, do your thing, you know, that's fine. And so I love where you're at. It's so beautiful. And so I think we need to continue to do a few more chats if you're willing to do, sort of delve into other spaces, other things, and we'll get some good collaboration going. I've actually got some things I need to address you with that came up just today. And I was thinking that's for him, that's for Adam. So, you know, the collaborations with people over here. And so that was real great. And I've got to get you to meet Wayne, who I work with. He's a friend. He's over in America too, but just a beautiful, wisdom-full soul, you know, and you'll love his chat room. A lot of the people here are from there too, and so I just see you really helping others in it, and also just being really helped by it too, by having that support network of people behind you to share what your journey, to share what you're willing to share. And that's something that people could be thankful for, that people are brave enough to share. So
I appreciate that. And I tell people all the time, I can't be the only one doing this. I can just go in front of, and I'll talk to anybody, like literally. I don't care if I'll talk to a Boy Scout group, I'll talk to a big corporate function, I'll talk to anybody about this, and I'll bring as much evidence as time will allow me to bring. But you know, it's hard. I am challenging some people. Again, this guy that I'm going to mention his first name, his name is Lee. You know, he's very experienced with energy weapons. He was in charge of the cleanup there. I'm about to bring it on him. And so I've got to kind of get things lined up first. And so many people are like, can I have access? It's like, yeah, sure. You know, if you want access, get on Instagram, email me. Again, Awakenedadam. I'll let people into my 9/11 vault, but it's about to get really built up. And I would love to collaborate with anybody that's willing to listen. So anybody that you can introduce me to, you know, I always got your back. Anything you need, I'm always.
I know somebody already who's going to have you on his show too. That's in the chat room, and David Berry, Soul Tribe Productions. He's in the chat room right now. He's a brother. Adore him. Is going to. He hasn't said this, but I'm just speaking on behalf of it, because he said Adam found his tribe. Welcome, brother. And so that's what he's that's what he's written there. And he's got you know, and there's a collaboration of beautiful people who do that, you know, the shows over there. So I know for a fact, and he's going to confirm it any second. I'm psychic, I know this, so I'm putting it out there. He's going to confirm that you're going to get an invitation there for sure. Susie, who is a sister and has my back and keeps me organized, is holding space and time in the chat as the moderator, and she's just saying awesome guest. Everybody's just really resonated with you tonight, Adam, and I know we went a little bit bouncy and I wasn't as organized, but that's what I do. I get all organized, and then I get all Jennified, and then it just happens. So, you know, it's how it went, but it resonated, and it's a real conversation. It's not an interview, it's a real conversation of two people meeting each other for the first time and actually being able to resonate on a level of old friends, and people in the chat being able to really feel you and resonate with you, and everybody's just saying thank you so much. And I mean,
thank you.
I
don't know if you guys had my hand over my heart the entire time. I appreciate it.
Oh, you've just got a beautiful energy, and I just know you're on this journey, and you need people behind you, and we need you. So it's reciprocity, and it's relationship, and it's exactly right on time. People are just saying, the chat's talked the whole time, just resonating with you, with what you're saying, and so I'll not go through it all, but people are just really, I can't tell you, just loving what you've got to say, and loving your energy, and agreeing with you, and adding in things to bolster what you're saying too, like Paul from Newcastle, about the passport. People are remembering these things, and so these conversations remind people and think, and so it spurs on the conversation, and definitely getting those hashtags moving. We've got to find a way to do that, and collaborate with people to get that, demand that these people answer or not, but look daft not answering if they don't answer. So everybody's just saying, good job, dude. I know there's at least 3 or 4 people in here now who are going to have you on the show, so that's going to be more audiences again, and it's everybody's just loving it, really, really appreciating it for sure. I'm over the moon for you, because I can just see it already. So I like where it's going. So
thank you.
Awakened Adam, I'll leave it here because I want to speak to Adam just to let him know some things afterwards that came up today that I really feel are for him. So Awakened Adam at Instagram. He's got his YouTube channel. I found that's Awakened Adam too, isn't it? And there's
I think so. It's just got my name. It's just my one video. It's just, I got to test me. I'm going to start. Yeah,
it's just I found that one, and it's one video that's just introducing who he is, and what he does now, and what he's done, and we're gonna
there's a little cussing in there. Sorry guys, I was a paratrooper.
I cuss all the time. Oh my goodness. Susie will be laughing now. Susie has heard me many a times. I can go like a sailor sometimes, honestly. My mom disowns me sometimes when when I'm driving as well. So everybody's just saying love you, and so I love you all, and thank you for putting up with me again, not being able to do a stream from where I was supposed to, and jumping back onto another stream. I appreciate you all. Love you all.
This was great.
Much balance, much wholeness. Awakened Adam at Instagram, and is it Awakened Adam on YouTube?
I think it's just Adam Eisenberg on YouTube. If you go into my link tree on Instagram, you're gonna be able to find my testimony. And I also have to say there's other videos in there. I teamed up with Jason Shurka. You guys, I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to Jason Shurka. He's amazing, and he also started this new platform. It's called the Academy of Divine Knowledge. It's a censorship-free platform, and so I'm very fortunate. He's invited me into the fold. I am going to be an affiliate instructor there, and if you look at some of the other names of some of the people that are going to be in that academy, Dr. Tenpenny, Del Bigtree, David Icke,
awesome.
a lot of big heavy hitters. Yeah, so I'm freaking out over here, getting to just think about the collaborations that are going to go on there. But this is going to be unfolding for a little bit, but just kind of, I can just assure you, just go to my Instagram, and I'm going to bring in my other channels and get a lot more organized very soon. I would almost say the next week or two.
I'm just going to put in the chat, Adam Eisenberg at, it's an awesome second name. Because some people don't do social media on here, I know, so that means that they can find you on YouTube, just to keep an eye on the channel and be able to be aware for when things do crop up there, and just allow the subscribers to creep up, organically while you're waiting to do more there, for people who aren't on social media. I love you all. Much balance and much wholeness. All love. I'm gonna find out. I should have been figuring out how to end the stream first, before I said all of that, but because now it's going to be like the long pause, isn't it? The long goodbye.
I don't know.
So no, cancel
button.
That's
the wrong guy. I don't know. I've never used.
It's
if you here you go. If you hit the button, then you tap the screen, then hit the leave button. You should be good to go.
Yeah, but I don't wanna let you go just yet. So, okay. So studio. There's got to be.
You are recording, right? I don't know if you're
Yeah, I'm
recording.
recording. It should have recorded automatically. So hold on.
Yeah, when I went through my awakening process, I basically I sold all my electronics. I really don't own any electronics anymore, and I kind of let electronics and computers and technology kind of pass me by a little bit. So now I'm like, shit, I need to go back and learn video editing, learn the Instagrams and the social medias, and I'm just like,
get all that back again. I'm totally behind with it, honestly. I really am, and I've got no excuse other than I don't like it. I like being able to talk to people.
Yeah.
But I don't like being able to. So hold on. Okay, so this is where I should learn how to sing, because I'm always doing this at the end of things. The long pause, chat amongst yourselves. Okay, so this one, I want to do this. Did that end it?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna do another meeting for you, and we'll just end it here. Okay.
Okay. I'll get back out if you want to. If you just want to send me another link, or I could probably just link right back in, and we can just talk again.
Yeah. I'm gonna just end. Yeah.